With cattle prices where they are today, you can't afford to lose pounds of gain to internal parasites in your herd. And it's important to realize that some parasites may be resistant to certain treatment options. For more on effective cattle deworming and parasite control, we head to Arkansas and Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Brian Baxter.
Cattlemen know that effective internal parasite control is the cornerstone of every animal health program. Using the right product at the right time is critical for maximum production.
Parasite control is so important to cattlemen because parasites do three things to animals. They decrease the feed intake, decrease average daily gain, and they affect the immune system. This can amount to about $190 over the lifetime of that animal. The other thing is they affect every segment of the cattle production system, whether it's the cow-calf guy, the stocker guy, or the feedlot guy. These animals have to deal with these parasites in every part of the production cycle.
Eldon Fry is the owner of a custom preconditioning operation near Quitman, Arkansas. Eldon says the key to his business is getting cattle healthy and ready for their next home.
We've been preconditioning cattle since 1999. Before that, we were a cow-calf operation for about 15 years prior to that. Spring of 99, we converted over, sold the cows, and became preconditioning lot. We get in anywhere from 7 to 10,000 a year. We keep cattle 45 to 60 days normally, do all of our vaccinations, dehorning, castrate bulls, ID. Get the cattle healthy and ready to go west, either to grass or to the feedlot directly, depending on the size of cattle we get in.
Fry says being in the cattle business is a way of life that suits him.
I'm in the cattle business because it's a way of life that I really enjoy. It's something I've been doing for 30 years. And then from the dairy business to be in the beginning to the stocker, to a beef cow operation. We had registered cows. Our son got into showing cattle. It's a perfect place to raise your kids. It's just a way of life that I really love. I like to take care of the animals. We really enjoy doing it.
For Eldon Fry, controlling internal parasites is an important factor in the entire animal health process.
Internal parasite control is important because these cattle are stressed. When we get cattle in on initial working, we're using Safeguard wormer along with our vaccines. We use a 5-way IBR BVD. We use a pastorilla with black-legged cattle, and like I said, we use Safeguard. So we're going to vaccinate them with a 5-way. You sure want it to work. You're spending the money on the vaccine and you want that calf to do it. So worming him on the first day and cleaning him out with Safeguard seems to me like works faster and gets that calf to where his immune system can be able to work and help that calf.
Dr. Newcomb describes the science that links internal parasite control with a properly working immune system.
What we know is that when you deworm an animal, then you're getting rid of the worms, and what we've seen is that the excretions and secretions of the worm are what's causing an altered immune response. So an animal that's heavily parasitized may not be able to respond properly to viral vaccine or viral disease. But when you kill that worm, then in about a 14-day period, the body is able to reset itself and respond properly with a proper immune response to your viral vaccine.
Eldon Fry definitely sees the effect.
I'll definitely see a difference after worming. And worming cattle and getting them parasite free sure helps the vaccines work a lot better, I think. You get your immune system up.
Optimal internal parasite control has become more difficult as resistance to a popular class of cattle dewormer available in pour-on and injectable forms has been documented and identified in many states.
Deworming protocols have changed in recent years because of resistance, okay? When we think about what's gone on, say, over the last 40 years in the cattle business with dewormers, in the 1970s, it was the brown stomach worm, okay? Ostratasia was the biggest, the baddest worm on the block. But when the avermectins or the ivermectin compounds came onto the scene, that parasite was basically handled. But over the years, what we've seen, especially with the advent of the pour-on dewormers and then the generic dewormers, we've seen those products kind of used and abused somewhat. And that's led us down the path of resistance because these products are being used at times of year when they don't need to be used, and they're used for fly control when they're actually dewormers. So what's gone on through the years, we've had this selection process, especially in the South, for a worm called Coperia.
Welcome back. Let's return to Arkansas and reporter Brian Baxter for more on the value of controlling internal parasites in cattle.
Dr. Newcomb says Coperia resistance to avermectin class dewormers was first documented by the U.S. Department of Agriculture on an operation in Wisconsin with cattle purchased from the southeastern U.S.
One of the first cases of parasite resistance recognized in the United States was up in Wisconsin, which would seem kind of odd. But what the guy in Wisconsin was a stocker guy. And what he did was he bought cattle in the South. They were overwintered in the South, and then they were moved up north to Wisconsin. But while they were in the South, basically they were dewormed pretty regularly, about like every 60 to 90 days with some form of pour-on dewormer. So when those cattle traveled up north, they carried every parasite that was in them or left over from those dewormings up to Wisconsin. And what the guy in Wisconsin had actually found was that his production level was going down. And then he contacted USDA. They got involved. They did fecal samples. They harvested some cattle, looked at the worms, and they found the predominant worm in those cattle was Coperia.
Newcomb says new research sponsored by Merck Animal Health confirms that these avermectin-resistant Coperia can have a significant impact on cattle performance.
Back in the dark ages when I was in school, Coperia was thought not to be a problem at all. But we've done some recent research where we've seen that particular parasite, especially like operation like that Eldon has, it can cost you up to a quarter of a pound a day in gain and up to 1.5 pounds a day in dry matter intake.
Newcomb states research shows that once resistance develops to a class of dewormer, parasite resistance occurs with every product and form of that class of dewormer.
Once the worm gets resistant to one of those classes of dewormers, it's going to be resistance to everything in there. And, you know, recently there's been a lot of hype that it was generic versus name brand. That it really doesn't matter. That once they get in resistance, they've got resistance to everything in that particular class of dewormer, whether it's brand X or brand Y, whether it's generic or trade name, they're going to see the same thing. The parasites will be resistant.
Dr. Newcomb says as important as an effective deworming is to the performance of cattle, cattlemen need to know their dewormer is effective.
Well, producers need to make sure whatever dewormer they're using is effective. And what they can do is take fecal samples on the day that they deworm, and then again 14 days later. What you want to see is about a 90% reduction in that egg count. If you don't get a 90% reduction in egg count or greater, then you've not had a successful deworming. And you need to go back and ask yourself a few questions. Number one, was the product administered correctly? Was it administered at the correct dose? If those two can be answered yes, then you need to start thinking about you might have a resistance problem and contact your veterinarian or parasitologist for help.
To prevent resistant parasites from multiplying and spreading to an operation, Dr. Newcomb says producers can use different classes of dewormers concurrently to minimize and manage parasite resistance.
Well, producers need to do to manage the parasite burden is basically clean the cattle out. Like if you're a stocker operator, you want to make sure that you kill all the worms in that animal as it comes into your operation, so you're not carrying resistant worms or distant population of worms onto your property. The best way to do that is to use like Safeguard, because Safeguard kills within 24 hours. The other thing you want to do too is to add that in combination with one of the macrocyclactones, one of the avermectin type compounds, because when you do that, you're getting the best of both worlds and you're protecting each compound from resistance developing.
Dr. Newcomb says the strategy of concurrent deworming with two different classes of compounds was developed, tested, and proven in Australia.
The modeling to show that the combinations work, that work actually started in Australia. What their model showed was that by putting the products in combination and using them at the appropriate time, you could actually extend the life of these products for several years. The other thing that they found, and the model did predict this, is that the amount of resistance or the number of resistant worms would go down by using the combination products. And over several years, that seems to have been proven out that the model was correct.
Newcomb says the concurrent deworming strategy has also proven to be a worthwhile investment in trials in the U.S. feedlot industry.
On the 4 feedlot trials that we've done and are published, what we found was that there was about a 10-to-1 return on your investment by using the combination of a macrosec lactone or ivermectin with Safeguard, okay? And that was 4 or 5 years ago when cattle prices were much less than what they are today.
Newcomb says cattlemen can see the benefits when they use this deworming strategy in their operations.
Well, 3 things to remember about strategic deworming is, number 1, it reduces parasite burden on the pasture. Number 2, it will improve the health of the cattle. But number 3, and probably most importantly, it will put more money in your pocket.
Eldon Fry agrees.
The one thing I want cattlemen to know about using a deworming product is that they will see results. They'll see weight gain, they'll see the cattle perform better, the product will pay for itself.
Reporting from Quitman, Arkansas, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
To find out more about controlling cattle parasites, visit the website merckanimalhealthusa.com.